So the Ashes series is now done and dusted, and much as we were predicting yesterday after the end of the fourth day, it has in fact ended 4-1 in Australia's favor. A pretty dominant series win, aside from, of course, that one test match, which was pretty much a lottery at the Melbourne Cricket Ground that England ended up winning. Now, obviously, let's quickly go over the match before we go into the analysis of how it is that the match played out. When we finished yesterday, obviously, the England was still about 8 wickets down, and they needed to get a significant amount of runs. I was saying you'd need anything over a 250-run lead to actually have some semblance of hope when it comes to winning this test match. Obviously, they came nowhere close in the end because the target wasn't really that high. It was just over 160. So this was obviously something that was never going to be a tough chase for the Aussies. Even though England did make a bit of a, let's say, match out of it, they took 5 wickets, but in the end, it was very much academic, and Australia were always going to be favourites to seal this match as well. England could only add not too many runs really to their overnight target because they were leading by about 119, and in the end, the target was only about 160. So they didn't manage to add the number of runs. Again, if you look at how it is that the innings played out, 161 for 5 is where Australia were at the end of the match. If England had about 250, perhaps this could have been a bit of a match, who really knows? But they weren't anywhere close, and should be hope of them potentially getting there or actually having any hope of defending this particular total. Australia, in the end, managed to chase it down pretty easily, although they did lose a few wickets and everyone got starts. Travis Head got a start, Jake Weatherall got a start, Marnus Labuschagne got a start, Steve Smith got a run ball 12. Khawaja in his final test match only managed 6 of 7. Alex Carey and Cam Green were the ones who got them home in the end with 16 and 22. But again, as I said, the number of runs that they were chasing made this pretty academic in the end for the Australian cricket team. So as far as they're concerned, dominant series done 4-1. The Ashes remains in Australia for at least another 2 years. But now let's come to the England team because again, this is where there will be a lot of points of contention, and we've spoken about this before. But this is the same England that, truth be told, under Baz have gone and undergone a radical change in terms of the way that not just they play. They also not only play cricket a certain way, but they've also changed the nature of their pitches. And this part really is the thing that a lot of people have had problems with when it comes to baseball, dare I say, as a whole. Because the major issue with them has always been that they've changed the nature of their pitches to such an extent that there is nothing very English about them anymore. The reason they were doing that was not only to encourage, of course, the batting or the batting style that was present under baseball, which was ultra aggressive, and of course, looking at hitting runs quickly and trying to play in Baz's words, not mine, sexy test cricket. It was also to basically ensure that you were prepared for bouncier tracks in Australia, and that was the key part really. You had to be prepared for tracks which were going to be bouncy. You were actually going to try and, let's say, ensure that you were playing in a certain style because you wanted to prepare for Australia or Australian tracks where it's going to be bouncy and the ball is going to bounce really hard and it might also be batting friendly. So we might really have to go for it. Did that really work? I mean, it obviously hasn't because if you look at how it is the series has gone, a 4-1 Ashes thrashing was not on the menu. They accommodated all of these demands from Baz and, of course, skipper Ben Stokes because the belief was that this would be what gave them the best chance of succeeding down under. They came very close to winning the Ashes in England, and I would say that there were two major things that robbed them of that particular win. One was, of course, the rain on day 5, but more so than that was the fact that Baz made that very, or not Baz, Stokes made that very stupid declaration during the first test match. I think that was pretty much what set the tone for it, and they were always playing catch up thereafter. But let's leave that aside. One of the major reasons was to make them a better force for down under. Has that happened? Absolutely not, because again, they have been beaten by an Australian team that
truth be told, have been nowhere close to their best. Let's be fair. I know people were laughing at English pundits for saying that this is one of the weakest Australian teams, but I don't think that that analysis is necessarily wrong. However, that makes England's loss look even worse in hindsight because this is a team that only had three batters who were performing in some semblance of form: Travis Head, Steve Smith, and of course Alex Carey. That, in fact, hasn't really stopped them from actually winning four tests is a major indictment on England. And even their bowling and the tactics at times just haven't really been up to scratch. There's been one dimensional. Every time something isn't going their way, let's try for the short balls, let's try the short stuff, let's do this, let's do that, was the only circumstance or the only thing that they were really trying to do. So, what exactly is going to be the case if you're going to try something different? That is what you were asking more often than not, in the sense that are they going to try something different? Are you going to see something new? Obviously, they haven't, and the fact that they couldn't is a major indictment on them as a whole. Now, obviously, the postmortem of this, usually a heavy series loss down under for England, does lead to heads rolling. The question will be whose heads will roll. Will it be the coach? Will it be the captain? Will it be both of them? If you ask me, I think the coach should go. I don't think they have a good captaincy option because Harry Brook, whilst obviously someone is being seen as being groomed for the future, I don't think is a good captain right now. And his form hasn't been convincing me. I don't want to add the burden of captaincy to him. The coach, however, the coach, once again, there will be scanners over his role and whether or not he should be removed. Again, he's only just been made the all format coach, so even that might seem a little bit of a stretch, but the results just haven't been good enough. And a 4-1 or loss down under, there's no mitigating circumstances to that. There's no way you can spin that in a positive way and say, oh, we really tried our best. Because again, you were second best to an inferior Australian team, and that has got to sting. He has been given votes of confidence by the likes of Rob Key prior to the fifth test. But again, if it had ended 3-2, maybe you could have walked away with a bit of respectability. The fact that it's 4-1 is a comprehensive series loss and one that, truth be told, can be very, very hard to recover from. So it'll be very interesting to see how it is that England do. Maybe they don't make the change right now because, again, there's a T20 World Cup coming up and Baz is the coach in all formats now. So you might not want to disrupt that. But maybe after the World Cup is done, you might see a decision made that no, we're changing our red ball coach and we're going to also, try a new direction there. Maybe I really hope England goes back to what works for them when they actually end up playing on greener pitches and they give the advantage to their seam bowlers. That's what made Test cricket fun to watch in England. It's what made the likes of a Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad such great players. That's what made Alistair Cook such a revered batter that he could bat so well in those conditions, and Andrew Strauss or Joe Root for that matter. It wasn't scoring big runs on flat tracks, right? But I do think England do have a lot of soul searching to do because, again, another humbling has come their way. One hopes that they take the humbling and actually work towards becoming better, but who really knows? I'll take a couple of you guys' comments because I've been seeing a few. You've got Sankalp 2006 here saying, blood, sweat, pride, and dominance. Australia retains the Ashes 4-1. And says lower order runs with the bat, wickets with the ball, absolute legend, GOAT, Mitchell Stark. I agree. I think Stark has reinforced his GOAT status not just as a bowler but also a handy lower order batter in this particular one. Nashley asked, did anyone give England any chance in this game? They did give a fight in this match, but let's be honest, it was a steep uphill climb. I agree. I think once they succumbed to the first innings lead, once they lost out, once they were trailing in the first innings, once Australia had that lead, I don't think anyone would have given them a chance. They would have needed a bare minimum of 250 to actually make it a match in the fourth innings, but they couldn't get to 250. They were nowhere close to 250. They were only 160 odd, and that was never going to be enough for as a target. Maybe 250 could have been something different. And I do agree, they did show some fight, they did show some spirit, but that's never going to be enough. And there's no point showing fight and spirit once the series is in fact done and dusted. Sankalp also says that injuries change careers. Stokes hasn't been the same since. I agree. Stokes, the batter, definitely has not been anything close to the same. In fact, the last impactful test knock I remember him playing was Headingley 2019. Not since. That was 7 years back almost, 6 years and counting. So a lot of question marks really over Stokes, the batter. Nasty also says that also terrible news about Tilak's injury before the World Cup. We needed him that spot. Now we are looking for a replacement, bringing Yashasvi Rataraj or Gale or playing Ishan Athri. Actually, very good questions, but one we could potentially answer later on in the day. Sankalp is also asking, what is now the WTC qualification scenario for England? Ooh, I don't think they're making it. Much like India, I don't think they're making it either. And Kevin Kumar asking what happened to Tilak. I mean, yeah, there's news of an injury coming through, and it's a developing story, but we'll discuss it in more detail later on. Anyway, that brings to a conclusion our Ashes coverage for this particular series. We hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for joining this live stream. As always, if you enjoy our work, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon too. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, X, and Facebook. And stay tuned for more such updates from the world of sport through the day. For now, from my side, it's goodbye.